All rise for the jury.
Going this way.
You may be seated. All right, welcome back. Thank you very much. And although we let you be seated, if you'd stand up for me right away. One more oath. If you raise your right hand, do each of you solemnly swear that you will render a true verdict based on the evidence and the law? Okay, you may be seated. Now, officials of this court, and you will follow the instructions that I gave you earlier. Thank you for following those over the break. All right, now I see many of you have notebooks in your hand. I know those are to take notes during the trial. Feel free to do that. I find that it helps to jog your memory, so I understand why you might want to, but know that when you go to begin deliberations, you will not be able to take your notebooks with you. Why would I let you take notes and then not take the notebooks? Because what we don't want is someone to go back there and say, I wrote this, therefore this is what was said, like this is the transcript, and that would somehow have more weight than the collective memory of what you all heard. That's why it is. But that also gives me the opportunity to emphasize to you, listen very closely to the testimony. You will not have the opportunity to just call us back and say, hey, I'd like to hear the testimony of X witness. It doesn't work like that. There are very limited times when you can get testimony read back to you. That's fine. All it means is that everything that you hear, all the evidence is important. So please pay attention at all times and be listening to what is being presented to you. I think those all we need to get started. Sage, are you ready to read the indictment?
I am, Your Honor.
You may approach. If you'd please rise.
Cause number CR 23-2132A, the state of Texas versus Stacy Sean Smith. In the name and by the authority of the state of Texas, a grand jury for Hays County, Texas, presents to the 274th District Court of Hays County, Texas, the following charge. On or about the 3rd day of February 2023 in Hays County, Texas, the defendant, Stacy Sean Smith, did then and there, while using a vehicle, intentionally flee from Stephen Starver, a person the defendant knew was a peace officer who was attempting to lawfully arrest or detain the defendant against the peace and dignity of the state, signed, foreman of the grand jury.
State. To that charge, how do you plead?
Not guilty.
Okay, I will enter a plea of not guilty into the docket. You may be seated. State, are you ready to proceed with your opening statement, or would you like to abandon?
State will waive its opening statement, Judge.
Very good. Are you ready to call your first witness?
I am.
Please call your first witness.
State calls Holly Chase.
Please raise your right hand. Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, I do.
Please have a seat. If you would, adjust yourself, just, you can move that a little closer to you. And it goes up and down. If you would, please tell us your name and spell it for the court reporter.
My name is Holly Chase, like HOLLYCHASSE.
Say,
Hold on.
Ma'am, what do you do for a living?
I am currently employed with the Ohio Police Department as the Emergency Communications Compliance Coordinator.
And if you weren't here today testifying in court, can you give us an idea of what your daily responsibilities will look like?
As far as the Emergency Communications Compliance Coordinator, I'm in charge of pulling all the 911 recordings, according to the request for the DA's office, fulfilling public records requests with our records department, and then I also help out on the 911 console board.
And have you actually worked as a dispatcher before?
Oh, yes.
What does a dispatcher do?
We take 911 calls, answer all emergency and non-emergency calls. We dispatch police with the Ohio Police Department. Previously, I worked for the Hays County Sheriff's Office, and there we dispatched for police, fire, and EMS.
And when you say you dispatch, how are you coordinating between the person calling and those resources that you just mentioned?
All of the information is put into a CAD system or computer-aided dispatch, and all of the information that we take on from the 911 calls, we put it into the system, and then from there we can pick which units are going to go according to their districts or their beats, and record all of their response times, their status checks, any updated information, run any information that they give us that we need to give back to them, such as driver's licenses, license plates, criminal histories, anything like that.
So if someone has an emergency and they pick up a phone and dial 911, who decides what agency that phone call is going to go to?
When you dial 911, your cell phone is going to plot at whichever tower is closest to you, and it's going to plot within that agency's jurisdiction. So like if I were to call 911 from this building, it would probably go to St. Marcus Police Department because of the towers and the response agencies that are around us.
And so when someone gets a phone call or a dispatcher gets a phone call, do they have a computer system that gives them information about that incoming call as well?
Yes.
What type of information comes with the actual phone call itself?
If it's a cell phone, it will give us either a phase 1 or phase 2 plot. A phase 2 plot is a specific radius, and on the screen it'll give us what the radius is of the 911 call according to where they are in the area. A phase 1 is just going to be plotting at a tower, whichever tower they get off of. We get information such as longitude and latitude. And if it's an active 911 call and the caller is moving, we can see where they're moving, where they're plotting, all that stuff.
And what happens when a phone call is disconnected? Do you continue to get that information from the phone?
Up to a certain point, yes.
And is there anything that the Ohio Police Department does to keep or ensure that there are records kept of 911 calls made?
Yes, all of our information, all of our 911 calls are kept on a server within our police department.
And do you have access to that?
Yes.
Do you know, are those 911 call recordings made at or near the time of the actual call itself?
Yes.
Are those records maintained by the Ohio Police Department in the regular course of your business?
Yes.
In fact, is it state mandated that you do that?
Yes.
Have you had an opportunity to review what has been marked as State's Exhibit number 1 on the splash drive here?
I have listened to this.
And do you know whether or not it was a recording of a phone call placed to the Ohio Police Department?
It was.
Is it an accurate recording?
Yes.
And would you be the custodian of records for that particular 911 call?
Yes.
Your Honor, at this time I'm going to offer State's Exhibit number 1, which is on the flash drive.
State's Exhibit 1 is admitted.
Judge, you may need to switch over.
One, do you have emergency? Yes, I do. Where are you located? Where are you located? I am not okay, no ma'am. Where are you located? Is there a type of crime there? Are you trying to vehicle? Because I don't know where I'm at. Trying to vehicle. I'm in trouble. You have a gun? He's gonna tell me he's gonna kill me. He's gonna crash the car when I get back to him. Ma'am, where are you located? What are you passing? We're Dr. Minnesota. We're in a Dodge Great Charger 2015. Okay, who has the gun? A my export, right? You said a Dodge Charger? in the vehicle with you?
The beeping that we just heard at the end there, what does that indicate to you?
That the caller is disconnected.
Was there a fair bit of information that got conveyed in that fairly brief 911 call?
Yes.
As dispatcher, are you trained in how to quickly absorb that information and get it to the people that need it?
Yes.
So based on what we heard on the 911 call, what information is incoming that you're then gonna have to relay out?
That the caller is in trouble, that the person in the vehicle with her had a firearm, and she was not answering information as far as where they were located, so it's our responsibility as a dispatcher to pay attention to our screen to see if we can get a phase 2 plot on where the caller is at.
And assuming that you were able to get a phase 2 plot of the phone location, would you share that information with anybody?
Yes, we would share it with our officers.
And in addition to the officers with the Kyle Police Department, do you ever share that information with other agencies?
Yes,
Why would you do that?
because we are on the same CAD system, the computer aided dispatch. It's shared with the Kyle Police Department, the Hays County Sheriff's Office, San Marcos Police Department, and the state.
And along with the information that we heard on the phone call and what you mentioned being put out by the dispatcher, is there also going to be a record made of the phone number that made that 911 call?
Yes,
Would that be part of the information that's put out on the CAD system as well?
yes.
I'll pass the witness.
Vince,
No questions?
can this witness be released?
It's fine with the state.
Thank you, ma'am. You're free to go about your business. State, call your next witness.
State calls Officer Sarver.
You raise your right hand. You swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
Yes, I do.
Please have a seat. If you would, please adjust that mic so that we can all hear you. And please tell us your name and spell it for the court reporter.
Officer Steven Sarver, S-T-E-P-H-E-N. Sarver, S-A-R-V-E-R.
State,
How are you employed, sir?
I'm a police officer in the state of Texas. I work for the city of San Marcos.
And how long have you worked for the city of San Marcos?
9.5 years.
And what's your current assignment with San Marcos?
I work in the K-9 division.
And what does an officer in the K-9 division do?
We respond to calls. We would act as a backup to other officers. Anytime patrol has an issue that might require a K-9, such as somebody fled from us on foot, or they're requiring a dog for a free air sniff or something like that, then they give us a call.
And let's maybe back up a little bit. You told us earlier you were a police officer in the state of Texas.
Yes,
Did you have to do anything in order to become a police or peace officer in the state of Texas?
yes. Prior to working in Texas, I was a police officer in Maryland as well for 5 years. When I applied to work down here, I had to take a test that would allow me to lateral as like the same level as a police officer, not have to attend the full academy. So I did that. I took the test, I passed that, and then I was able to be hired as a full-time police officer.
Did you have to attend an abridged academy?
San Marcos does have a mini academy, which is, I think, 7 or 8 weeks long, and it kind of covers how San Marcos does specific things. It's not a full academy, it's just a mini academy. It covers shooting, driving, penal code, I think, state department policies, tasers, less lethal force, stuff like that.
So if I were to ask you how many hours of training you have between Maryland and Texas, in the various areas of law enforcement, do you have any idea what that number might look like?
Thousands.
Thousands? As a canine officer, are you regularly wearing a uniform?
I am
What type of uniform are you usually wearing?
the exact uniform I have on right now.
And are you driving a marked vehicle?
Most of the times. The night of the incident, I was. My car now it's marked, but it has ghost graphics on it, so it's a little, you can only see it in certain angles. But the one that I was driving the night of the incident was fully marked.
So in February of 2023, you were driving a marked unit.
Yes,
And when we say marked unit, what do we mean?
it was black and white, and it had big letters about that tall that said police on the side. And on the back, with big letters on the back.
Did it have any special light equipment on it?
Yes, red and blue flashing lights and the siren equipped also.
And you mentioned that as a canine officer, you're primarily responding to assist other officers with your canine, is that correct?
That's right.
In this particular incident, did you take a slightly different role?
Yes,
Let's kind of start. First of all, were you working on February 3rd of 2023?
yes, I was.
Were you working with your canine partner?
Yes.
Who was that?
At the time, it was Rex.
And what area of San Marcos were you located in?
We were, the time I initially heard the call on the radio or whenever,
Yes, when you first learned about this particular
I
incident.
think I was around the 206. I actually just grabbed food, so I was at the 206 exit. 206 southbound,
Which roadway are we discussing?
IH 35.
So you had just gotten some food, and what information came to you and how did you get it?
I heard on the radio that they gave what's called a rollover, or be on the lookout, that it was passed on from Kyle PD, and that a female was heard saying that she was being held against her will in a vehicle, that he had a gun, and he wouldn't pull over. She gave a description of her vehicle, the vehicle that they were in, as a gray Dodge Charger.
In addition to that kind of general vehicle description, were you provided with the phone number that had actually placed that 911 call?
We were, yes.
And if you know, did you or other officers with the San Marcos Police Department look into any public or private databases to try and associate that phone number with a person?
We did, yes.
Were you able to do that?
Yes, we were.
And were you able to determine the name of the person whose phone placed that 911 call?
We were.
What was that person's name?
Karen Conscious.
And were you able to determine whether she had any vehicles that were registered to her name?
We were.
Did one of those vehicles match the vehicle description from that 911 call?
It did, yes.
And based on that, did you have a license plate for the vehicle that you believed you were looking for?
Not initially. I only had a vehicle description. I had, so I can go into further detail. I heard the call go out. I was near 35, so I went and I pulled up off of 204 southbound where the entry ramp is. And I stopped and I just started observing traffic as it came by. I saw in my rearview mirror, I saw a gray Dodge Charger in the very far left lane, traveling at a pretty high rate of speed. As soon as the driver saw me, hit the brakes, got over into the middle lane, which is a clue to me that might be the vehicle I'm looking for. So I sped up and tried to get on the interstate. As I did so, I saw the vehicle almost attempt to lose me right away. The driver started speeding up, changing lanes rapidly, but unfortunately for him, he got cut by traffic and there was 3 lanes blocked. He would have had to go around on the shoulder, and so I was able to catch up to the vehicle.
May I first go witness, Judge?
You may.
Officer Sarver, I'm going to show you what's been marked as State's Exhibit number 2 and 3. Are you familiar with the Hays County area?
I am.
State's Exhibit 2 and State's Exhibit number 3, do they appear to accurately reflect the areas of interest in this case?
Yes.
And in fact, the little red dot on Fuego Tortilla, would that be where you stopped to have dinner?
It wasn't. It was actually it was off of Springtown Parkway, which is up at 206. But that's where I stopped my vehicle to observe traffic.
So State's Exhibit number 2 and 3, do they fairly and accurately depict the areas we're going to be discussing?
Yes.
This time I would offer State's Exhibits number 2 and 3 and tender to opposing counsel for any objections.
Objection.
State's Exhibit 2 and 3 are admitted.
All right, officer, we're starting here with State's Exhibit number 2. Can you kind of describe the general area that we see depicted here on this map?
Yes, 35 runs kind of north to south, or northeast to southwest. And Highway 80, which is exit 205, runs east to west in the middle of the city.
I'll give you this laser pointer. Please use it responsibly, okay?
Mhm.
Looking here at State's Exhibit number 3, you said that little red dot was significant. Why?
Fuego is exit 204 southbound, where there's construction there now, but there used to be an entry ramp to get onto 35, and that's where I pulled my car over to observe traffic as it came by after I heard the call.
And were you stationary or were you moving?
I was stationary.
And as vehicles were passing you by, one in particular caught your attention, is that right?
Yes.
Once you saw that vehicle, what did you do?
Accelerated, got on IH-35 southbound proper, and caught up to the vehicle to get the tag number.
Did it take you a little bit of time to get caught up to that vehicle?
A mile or so. I think it was around 202 that I caught up.
Did you notice a change in that vehicle's movements as you tried to catch up to it?
Absolutely.
Specifically, what did you notice?
Like I said earlier, as soon as it appeared that I saw the vehicle and the vehicle driver saw me, the driver slammed the brakes on and went from the far left lane, the passing lane, to the middle lane. And then as soon as I pulled out onto the interstate, the vehicle accelerated back up, almost as if it was attempting to lose me already.
And Officer Sarver, to be fair, you don't know what was actually going through that driver's mind.
No,
Safe to say you've seen a bunch of different types of reactions to people when they see cop cars on the highway, correct?
yes,
But given the information that you had, did you feel it was significant, that change in behavior that you observed?
yes,
Once you had identified the vehicle and you had kind of observed some of that suspicious driving behavior, did you immediately turn your lights on and conduct a traffic stop?
no,
Why not?
because I was alone.
Why is that a problem?
The call indicated that the driver was being held against her will at gunpoint, and I didn't want to handle that alone.
And what is the benefit, based on your training and experience, having multiple officers respond to a scene like that as opposed to just having a single officer?
If there's multiple people involved, they can deal with multiple people at once, and it helps us be able to control the situation better, and it's safer for us and other people.
So were you in contact with anybody as you were pursuing this vehicle?
Yes, other officers via the radio and dispatch via the radio.
And where did you and this vehicle continue to travel?
Southbound on 35.
And at some point, did you make a decision that you needed to initiate your lights and sirens?
Yes, I caught up to the vehicle at around 202 southbound. This is significant because at 202 southbound, where One World exit is, if you notice, they have overhead lights that are like very bright, very tall, like 80-foot ones. They shine white light down. The section part of that is very dark, but once you get 202 southbound, it's very, very bright. The road is well lit. When I caught up to the vehicle at 202 southbound, I could read the tag number. I called that over the radio. They told me on the radio that that tag number came back to apparent conscious, which is what the initial call the female said her name was when she called 911. So at that point, I believe I had the right vehicle.
Okay, so at that point, did you initiate your traffic stop?
Not yet. So I wanted to look inside the vehicle to see if I could see anyone inside. So I got in the center lane and I pulled up next to the driver. And I looked over and I looked at him directly in his eyes. We were probably 12 feet from each other. And he looked to the left, glaring at me. And then I pulled a little bit further because I initially couldn't see anyone in the passenger seat, so I was confused. So I pulled up a little bit further and I looked back past the A pillar and I could see in the windshield at that point. And again, it was very well lit because of all the street lights. And I'll never forget the look of sheer terror that I saw in this woman's eyes. She had the seat all the way back, where this part of the seat, the back part, was reclined completely down. She was in a defensive position with her hands up like this and her mouth was open like she was screaming. And she was pulling her body away from the male driver as far as she could.
Given the position that she was in, were you able to get a clear look at her face?
Yes, I was.
Were you able to get a clear look at the driver of that vehicle's face?
I was.
And looking around the courtroom today, do you see anybody here in that courtroom who you observed driving the vehicle on February 3rd of 2023?
I do.
Can you point in his direction and tell me something about where he's sitting or what he's wearing?
He's sitting at the chair over there and he's wearing a black suit and a grayish shirt.
Let the record reflect the witnesses identify the defendant. Now, Officer Sarver, after you observed the female kind of cowering as you described her, at that point, did you decide that you needed to take action?
Yes.
What did you do?
I told dispatch again what I saw the female in the passenger seat, and I believed I had the correct vehicle. We passed San Marcos PD, which is a 202 southbound, multiple vehicles pulled out, patrol vehicles pulled out onto the interstate behind me. They told me on the radio, we have enough officers, go ahead and turn the lights on. So I did so.
And what happened when you turned your lights on?
The vehicle continued traveling, and exited. I have to read my report to remember what exact exit they exited.
Let's not focus on the number of the exit, but once that vehicle took the exit off of 35, what did it do?
It pulled to the far right shoulder and right lane, right shoulder area of the proper after it exited and stopped. The window rolled down and the driver sitting there leaned out and poked his head out of the window.
Now, Officer Sarver, based on your training and experience, are there any special concerns or steps that law enforcement is going to take when they're encountering a situation like this?
Yes, we're not going to walk up to a vehicle where someone allegedly has a gun and treat it as a normal traffic stop. We do what's called a hot stop or a felony stop, where we stay behind cover and we pull our guns out and we give orders to the people in the vehicle so it's safer for them and for us.
Did you attempt to begin a felony stop in this occasion?
We did, I did, yes.
What happened when you started giving the driver orders?
He leaned out the window and yelled, "Why?" And I believe it was "Why?" And after I was telling him, turn the car off and throw the keys out, which we do so they won't drive off in the middle of this. And he said, "Why?" And then a few seconds passed. The whole thing maybe lasted 20 seconds or so. And then the car went into gear and peeled out and took off, jumped on the interstate.
And it may sound like kind of a silly question, but you mentioned the vehicle you're following is stopped. Is your vehicle stopped behind it?
Yes, there are multiple police vehicles with their lights on, blocking the entire access road from any cars passing.
And in order to conduct a felony stop, as you mentioned, did you step outside of your vehicle?
I was in partially outside, partially inside. I had the door open. I believed I was standing on like the little running board and had my gun pointed through the little door opening of the V in the roof.
So did the driver wait for you to stop and exit your vehicle before he accelerated away?
Yes.
And when that vehicle left the scene, were there a bunch of other cars around that may have been perhaps the subject of a traffic stop that you were conducting?
No, this vehicle was the only one on the access road, minus all of our police cars behind it. There was no one in front of it that I could see.
And when you said the vehicle accelerated, where did it go?
It got immediately back on the interstate on 35 southbound and continued accelerating rapidly.
What did you do?
I followed them with my lights and sirens on.
And were you able to catch up to it?
I was able to keep it in sight for a little while, but after a couple miles, I couldn't see it anymore.
Was there anything that the vehicle did that caused you to have trouble keeping track of it?
Yes, as soon as the vehicle accelerated and got on the interstate, we got exceeded over 100 within 10, 15 seconds. The driver turned off the headlights and the taillights, and it was dark in the evening at that time. And so it was very hard to keep track. The only time I could see it was when I could see the brake lights hit, and then the driver would cut across 3 lanes of traffic and pass cars on the shoulder. At one point, I think I was doing 130 and the vehicle was continuing faster than that. So I estimate between 130 and 150 that the Charger was doing.
Were there other vehicles that were on 35 heading the same direction while all this was going on?
There was traffic on the road on 35 southbound.
Based on your training and experience, do you believe that the suspect vehicle posed a danger to those other drivers?
Absolutely.
Why?
I have responded to many collisions, including fatalities, and speed is normally a factor in those accidents. Accidents happen when people drive faster than the speed limit, and accidents are more prone to happen when there are big actions by other vehicles, such as changing lanes quickly, cutting people off, passing on the shoulder, and things like that. The risk for accident goes way up when people drive like that.
So is there anything in the San Marcos Police Department policy about pursuits and when they've just become too dangerous to continue?
It mentions, yes, our policy mentions that you have to continually weigh the risk versus reward. In other words, so is the danger to the public more of a risk than what we are pursuing for? Which at that point, what I knew, and this woman would potentially be killed if I didn't stop that vehicle, then I did not believe at all that the risk was outweighing that.
So despite the danger, did you continue to attempt to pursue that vehicle?
Yes, until at some point we lost sight of the vehicle.
And did you notify any other agencies in or around the area so that they would be on the lookout for this vehicle?
We did. New Braunfels PD is just south of us, so we notified them.
And is that towards the bottom? Would that be left-hand side of the screen that we see there in Braunfels?
Yes, this is New Braunfels here.
And if you could indicate on State's Exhibit number 3, the kind of the path of the pursuit that you took.
I'd have to remember which roads these are, but in this section right here is where we started, and then it continued south past here, all the way down, and we lost sight of them as we were entering New Braunfels.
And Officer Starver, in addition to writing a police report, do you also have the benefit of having an in-car camera and a body camera to refresh your recollection?
Yes,
Did you have those on this particular night?
yes,
Have you had an opportunity to review those videos?
not recently, but I watched them after the incident, yes.
Your Honor, pursuant to the redactions discussed, I would offer State's Exhibits number 4 and 5, which are the in-car and body cam.
There's no objection, Your Honor. We were provided copies of that exhibit previously.
State Exhibit 4 and 5 are admitted.
And we'll start here with State's Exhibit number 4. Officer Starver, does this appear to be your body camera or your car camera? And the vehicle that we see that seems to have activated its brake lights right there, does that appear to be your suspect vehicle?
Yes,
And we notice up here at the top of your screen, there's a date and time stamp, is that right?
yes,
If you know, does the San Marcos Police Department use different date and time calculations between the body cam and the in-car camera?
I'm not certain, but I do know that the time that's shown on that is a different time zone. I don't remember what time zone it is, but it's not with Central Time.
Is it commonly referred to as UTC?
I don't know, but probably.
That's fair, I don't know what UTC stands for either. Is it approximately 5 hours faster than our local time, at
Yes,
least during February?
yes,
So if we wanted to know the actual date and time, we just subtract 5 hours from the date and time stamp that we see on this video?
5 or 6, I'm not sure. I know what time it happened by looking at my report. I remember what time it happened because but I don't, I would have to look.
pause, states exhibit number 4 at the 17-second mark. What did we just observe you doing?
This is when I talked about me pulling alongside the vehicle to look at the driver and observe the driver, and me pulling past it to look back in through the windshield to see the passenger, and then backing off and getting behind the vehicle.
And would these be some of the bright lights that you were referencing earlier?
Yes. That's San Marcos Police on the right.
That last major intersection, would that have been Wonderworld?
Yes, the bridge that we went over prior to that. You can see that's exit 201, which is McCarty.
Officer Sarver, why were you staying so far back behind the vehicle?
A couple reasons. One being, if he did have a gun, I didn't want him shooting at me through the back seat, through the back window. It's a little harder to hit me when I'm further away. And the second was just to observe his behavior and see if it would change if I was so far back. If I'm right on him, it's more apt to take off right away or something like that. If I'm so far back, he may think that I'm not looking for him. I didn't want to start a pursuit by myself. I wanted to wait until I had backup.
And Officer Sarver, what just happened there that we could see?
I turned my emergency overhead lights on.
Did the driver appear to respond to that?
Yes. Is there a reason it doesn't have sound?
We'll review your body camera here in a minute.
Okay.
Officer Sarver, did other vehicles on IH-35 appear to recognize your red and blue lights and or siren.
Yes.
Objection calls for speculation.
Sustained.
At some point during this portion of the pursuit, did your suspect vehicle do anything to its lights?
Yes.
What did it do?
Turned off the headlights and taillights.
Were you still able to maintain a visual of the vehicle at least for a brief period of time?
Yes, for a mile or two. It's hard to tell in the camera because it's like a fisheye lens or whatever, but in real life, I could see the brake lights, the car cutting across many lanes of traffic and passing on the shoulder. It's just really hard because of how small everything is.
And when you lost sight of the vehicle, did you have concerns that it may have exited the freeway?
Yes, that's why you see me exit here. I had seen the vehicle hit the brake lights and dart across to the right shoulder, and it was right before this exit, so I thought he may have taken the exit. So since other vehicles were continuing southbound, I thought I would check the exit.
Would that have been approximately the last time that you had visual of the suspect vehicle?
Yes.
Did you check the area where you initially lost sight of the vehicle to see if you could locate it again?
Say the question again?
Did you check the area surrounding where you had lost sight of it to try and locate it?
Yes.
Were you successful?
No.
At some point, were you notified by the New Braunfels Police Department that they had had contact with that vehicle?
Yes.
Did you have fairly extensive conversations with officers from the New Braunfels Police Department, both that night and then in the days following?
Yes.
Can you tell me, in your training experience as a law enforcement officer, is there any benefit for law enforcement to look at individuals' social media posts?
Yes.
Why?
It can help us identify people. It can help us ascertain certain aspects of their life.
And do you or the San Marcos Police Department have a Facebook account?
I have one. The San Marcos Police Department also has one.
At some point that evening or the next day, were you able to access Facebook posts or accounts for a Karen Conscious?
I personally did not, but another officer that was working at it did.
Were those provided to you to review?
Yes.
And also for a Stacy Sean Smith?
Yes.
Now, approach witness.
You may.
And Officer Sarver, you actually know personally a Karen Conscious or Stacy Sean Smith?
I don't know them personally.
So you're not telling us that these are
It's a
definitely,
meeting.
are you telling us that these are definitely Facebook accounts for these particular people?
I'm not. I don't know them.
What significance was it to you to look at these Facebook profiles then?
The significance was I can see who it is, and it's the same people that I saw in the car. that
Objection,
night.
Your Honor. It's not putting it into evidence, it's commenting on it.
Okay, ask your next question.
States Exhibit 6 and 7, do these accurately reflect the Facebook profiles that you were shown?
Yes.
And based on what you observed on February 3rd of 2023, the States Exhibit 6 and States Exhibit 7 accurately show the people that you observed inside the suspect vehicle.
Yes.
This time I'm going to offer States Exhibit 6 and 7 and tender to opposing counsel for any objection.
Object, Your Honor, hearsay.
Your Honor, it's not being offered for the truth of the matter asserted, specifically for the effect it had on the listener, and that he was able to confirm the identity of the parties and continue his investigation from there.
Please approach.
All right, Officer Server, let's switch
Ms.
over
Bruce,
to.
I'm sorry, is your microphone on?
It is now. Let's swap over to your body cam, which does have some audio.
Yeah, 22 right lane, doing 65, passing the exit 201.
Officer Server, I'm gonna pause it for a moment here at 43, 48 seconds. That high-pitched whining that we can hear, do you know what's causing that?
Yes,
What?
that's my dog.
Does your dog get very excited?
He does, yes, sometimes,
Safe to say that high-pitched whining goes on for quite a bit.
yes.
Yeah, 22, can you make contact with her via her phone, or you try calling her?
Officer Server, we just heard you asking someone if they had tried calling her. Who was the her you were referencing?
The person who originally called 911.
And who were you asking if they had tried to call that individual?
Either dispatch or another officer, I believe it was dispatch. You can't hear the radio, I think, talking back to me because I wear an earpiece, so you're not gonna hear any of the responses back to me.
Still right lane, unit 66, coming up to Sac Lane, passing like the JC 9. Proper.
Positive 1 minute 32 seconds. Officer Server, why are you telling people how fast you're going and where you are?
This helps responding officers know where we are so they can get to us quicker.
Yeah, 22, looks like we're gonna pass exit 200 Sac Lane, or right lane, still proper 66 miles an hour. Christie, we have anything else close? There, turn lights on, right, it's opening, exit goes here. Can you also let know the office number? Yeah, 22, he's exiting, 199 Posey.
Officer Server, what are you doing at this point in the video?
Getting ready to give announcements to the driver and pulling my gun out
Why were you pulling your gun out?
because it was a dangerous situation that I might have to shoot.
Yeah, 22, we're stopping in front of U-Haul, rentals here.
And Officer Server, if it's such a dangerous situation that you're pulling your gun out, why are you taking time out to notify dispatch where you're located?
If something happens, the first thing they need to know is where to send people. So I gotta let them know where we stopped at, where we are at.
Turn the car off! Driver, turn the car off! Throw the keys out the window!
A tire squealing noise that we just heard, do you know what vehicle caused it?
The Charger.
Yeah, 2 signal, we get on proper. And 22 is, looks like he's getting in the middle lane. Middle of 110, last lane, north lane. And 22 is down 15. It's lights up. The next one, I still see him, he looks like he's going proper. He turned his lights off, the way it's in distance, that's 95, I see him still there. Yeah, 22 on exit 95, I think he may have exited, I'm sure.
And would that cover the last time that you actually saw the suspect vehicle?
Yes.
Based on the information that you reviewed from the Facebook page, did you make any inquiries or do any additional research on the name Stacy Shawn Smith?
I did. I checked our police databases. We can run people's name and birthday to find out driver's license and addresses and things. And I checked both Karen Conscious and Stacy Smith for their driver's license.
Did you check their driver's license photos?
Yes.
And based on what you observed, did they appear to be the same or different people from the ones you observed inside the vehicle?
They're the same people.
And
Objection, Your Honor, it's commenting on facts, not evidence, and it's hearsay. They wanted to bring those driver's license photos and they should have brought them in the business record affidavit in the state of Texas.
Overruled.
Officer Server, what was the position that you observed the defendant to be in inside that gray Charger?
The position using the driver's seat.
And how about Karen Concha?
She was in the passenger seat.
After the gray Charger was able to evade from you on February 3rd of 2023, did you take any additional steps in your investigation?
I didn't.
Did you obtain what you believe to be a phone number for the defendant?
Yes.
Did you seek any type of search warrant for records related to his phone number and Karen Conscious's phone number?
I did.
What did you do with the information that you received in response to those search warrants?
I authored a search warrant for the the cell phone data records are called detail records. And when I got them back, I gave them to our data analyst so they could take the raw data and put it into something that I could understand.
And did you have an opportunity to review that final report?
I did.
And based on your own observations, the totality of your investigation, did you form an opinion as to who the driver of that gray Dodge Charger was on February 3rd of 2023?
Yes,
Who was it?
it was Stacy Smith.
We'll pass the witness.
Defense?
Ms. Brown,
Sorry.
Ms. Brown, if I could have you use your microphone. Thank you.
Okay, can you hear me better? All right, so you said that you have been a police officer for about 14.5 years, correct?
Yes,
And when you came to Texas, you just took the lateral exam, essentially, the shortened version.
yes, I was able to lateral as a certified peace officer because of the test that I took.
Okay. Have you had any training since then?
Yes,
Okay, what kind of training have you had?
it's hard to remember it all. We go through 40 hours of training every 2 years in addition to any other training that we seek. I went to basic SWAT school. I became a driving instructor for our police department, so I actually teach our people.
You teach what?
I teach our people, our patrol officers. I went through less lethal training. So the 40 hours that we take for refresher training every year for 2 years covers officer down, active shooter, a number of different things like that.
Did you ever go to investigator school?
I went to one in Maryland. It was it was a week long, I believe, and it was like a digital investigation school.
So most of your training for your follow-up and annual refreshers is more geared towards your road duties of training, SWAT, high intensity type of scenarios.
Not necessarily, it could be anything. I would have to look at my entire list of training, cultural training. There's just a number of things that they have us go through. I can't remember them all. I'd have to look at my whole list.
Did you ever receive any training on, investigating a crime scene and as it pertains to eyewitness investigation?
Yes,
And in that training, did you learn about all of the different variables that you take into account when you're trying to get an eyewitness identification from a civilian or a victim?
yes,
Part of that includes different types of ways to help you with the reliability of that information, such as show-ups, lineups, etc., right?
sure.
You're not trained to do the lineups, are you?
I am. I have attended that training.
You did do the training?
Yes,
When did you do that training?
years ago. I don't remember the exact date. Again, I'd have to look at my TCOL training records to look and see what date it was.
Okay. And just for the jury's benefit, a lineup is going to be where it's a controlled setting. You're outside of the excitement of the activity that led to the need for a lineup. Is that correct?
Yes,
And if you're a trained officer in administering lineups, you know the various techniques you're supposed to use to make sure that everyone appearing in the lineup is somewhat similar. Is that correct?
correct, yes.
And this is all just a way to help solidify an eyewitness identification, right?
That's right,
And that's because sometimes people misidentify folks, right?
yes,
I'm sure you've had times where somebody thinks they see somebody, then they go to a lineup, they don't identify that person again, right?
correct. Correct, that does happen.
And then lineups were always a preferred method over what we call a show up, are they not?
Yes,
And that's because a show up is where basically, I'll say law enforcement, but it can be anybody, brings a subject over to the eyewitness and says, is this the person, right?
correct.
I mean, in your duties, sometimes you'll actually have a person like locked up in the back of the car and you kind of driving by and the person will say, oh, that's him, or that's her, right? They see them inside of the patrol car.
That can happen.
And those tend to be a little less reliable because of that suggestion. Would you agree with me?
Yes,
And also to make an eyewitness identification clean and unambiguous, it can be affected, can it not, by other collateral information that comes in after the initial, oh, I think that's who this person is.
it can be affected by a number of different things.
Right. It's all matters of suggestivity, is it not?
I would tend to agree with you there.
You do agree, so.
Yes, I would tend to agree with you.
And then of course, the actual initial identification of a person by eyewitness, the factors that go into play there might be the actual scene itself, like the lighting. You kept talking about the lights, how bright and great they were on IH-35, right?
Can you repeat the question?
You talked about the lighting being very good on IH-35.
Yes, it was.
Okay, so I guess maybe I wasn't listening carefully enough to you. Did you get the license plate number after you made a visual of the people inside the car, or before? When did you get the plate?
I don't remember. I would have to listen to the audio of the dash camera.
Because my notes show that you thought that you picked up, you basically got the call and you said, hey, I'm nearby, I'm gonna pull over somewhere safe so I can watch for the car essentially, right?
Correct.
And you saw a vehicle drive by, you're like, I think that's it, I'm gonna enter the freeway ramp, the ramp doesn't exist anymore over the river, correct?
Yes.
By Fuego?
Yes.
Okay, and shortly after you got on to IH-35 is when you got up close enough to the vehicle to look inside, or did you travel for a distance?
I guess I don't understand the question. Are you asking me how soon I looked inside the vehicle?
Yes,
Fairly quickly.
okay.
Just-
And then you told us that you had to wait until you got over around Wonderworld exit 202 because the light there was really good, so you get the license plate number. Do you remember saying that?
No, I didn't wait until the light was good. It just so happened that that's where I pulled up next to him. That's where the lights start. It just happened. I didn't wait specifically for the lights.
So it just happened, that's when you actually caught up to them, was exit 202?
Yes, it just happened. That's where I caught up to.
Okay. Well, Fuego is right before which exit? 203?
The old 204.
Which is really just one exit up from 202, correct?
Yes, so if you enter onto that interstate from Fuego, the old entrance, the very next exit would be 202.
Okay. Yeah, so we're traveling southbound on 35 and you are parked over in front of Fuego on IH-35 South, which is before the San Marcos River. It's right about at the San Marcos River, right?
Correct.
Okay. And then when you enter the freeway, you enter it almost crossing the river, which used to be a dangerous merge, which is why it's gone now, right?
Correct.
Okay, and somewhere after you merged onto the highway, you probably would have already been pretty close to the intersect, crossing over Highway 123, right? That comes up pretty quickly?
Yes, the bridge over 123 is pretty quick.
Yeah, because you pass on the right side of the little kid Little League ball fields, and then all of a sudden you can exit and go to 123. As soon as you get on, you get right off, right?
Correct.
All right, so had you caught up to the vehicle before you passed 123, or was it between Highway 123 and Wonder World that you were beside the car?
I believe it was as we got on top of the Wonder World Bridge. I'm sorry. It was right after the 123 bridge. It was in between 123 bridge and where the Wonder World Bridge was.
Okay. All right, and so that is where that's where your video starts in your car. And do we know where the video is before that? Where you actually, like, once you actually get onto the freeway and merge?
So the way our cameras work and our in-car systems is it's activated either by speed or if we manually activate it or if we turn our lights on. So one of those three things has to happen. I have to do over a certain speed limit for it to automatically kick on, or a speed indicator or whatever. I have to turn my lights on for the camera to come on, or I have to reach up and manually touch them. When I do one of those three things, the last 30 seconds of the video with no audio is recorded, and then as soon as the lights are activated, the audio starts happening.
Okay, so in this particular case, did you accelerate quickly to get onto the freeway to engage the video or not?
I don't understand the question.
Well, it seems like we're missing some video from the time that you were parked until the time it was produced.
Okay, I get what you're asking.
Yeah.
There is no video before that because I didn't do one of those three things. When I caught up to the vehicle and either read the tag number or pulled up beside it and looked inside and believed it was correct, that's when I activated it. And that's when it starts the last 30 seconds, which apparently more than 30 seconds had gone by, and that's why you're not gonna see me pulling out onto the interstate. Because at the time I was pulling out on the interstate, I wasn't for sure this was the car, I just expected it was based on his driving behaviors. It wasn't until I actually got up, ran the tag number, Mark came back to Karen Conscious, who was their caller, pulled up next to it, that's when I realized this is it, I need to activate my end card. Yeah.
Okay, so you just said that you verified the license plate and then looked inside?
I don't remember the order in which I did things, I would have to watch my video.
Well, I believe,
It's-
go ahead, I'm
Sorry,
sorry.
it's likely I read the tag number first, just based on officer safety. I don't want to pull up next to somebody that's potentially armed and will shoot me before I get the tag number of the vehicle, so I don't remember, but it's likely I read the tag number first on the radio.
So you're telling us that you read the tag first, found out that it was the vehicle that had an armed driver, and then you looked in the window?
I don't remember.
Okay. But regardless, somewhere between Highway 123 bridge, I-35 over 123, and between Wonderful Drive is when we see you on this video, because you can see the green lit building on the right side in the background of the video. It's when you're close to the suspect car. Do you remember seeing that on your video, a green lit building on the right side?
I don't remember seeing that on my vehicle.
Well, if that's what the jury would see, if they were play it again, is that the Holiday Inn?
More than likely, yes. There's-
So right around that area, you're telling them the lights were really great and you could just see in this vehicle, no problem?
When I pulled up next to the vehicle, the lights were great. I don't remember when the exact moment was that the lights started becoming good. I know the section at 204 didn't have any lights, but in the area of 202, when I pulled up next to the vehicle, there were very bright lights overhead.
Okay, so you pulled up into the area with the very bright lights and looked into the vehicle of a man who was allegedly holding a firearm against a woman holding her hostage. And I think if you count the seconds, it took 2 seconds before you moved your vehicle up in front of the car. Is that fair? 2 seconds.
That sounds about right.
And in 2 seconds, you were able to observe what regarding the male?
I'm not sure of what question you're asking. What he looked like?
What did you observe regarding the male?
Are you asking what he looked like?
What did you observe regarding the male in the 2 seconds that you were by the car?
I observed he made eye contact with me, he glared at me, and that I could see his whole face. His demeanor seemed upset.
Did you look for a gun?
Yes,
So you weren't looking at his face at that time, were you?
the moment I looked for a gun, it was all simultaneous. When I looked at him, and I looked at him in his eyes, I was taking in everything I could see. I was obviously looking for a gun because potentially could be very dangerous for me. I was looking at all of it at once.
And what distinctive feature, what was unique about his hair?
It was kind of longish, medium length.
Okay, so how does that set him apart from anyone else?
Sets him apart from people with short hair or long hair.
Okay, what about his face?
I'm not sure what question you're asking.
What did you observe about his face? What does the nose look like? Black person nose, white person nose, Hispanic nose, Asian nose?
What did his nose look like?
Yeah.
It looked like a normal person's nose.
Okay. And what color skin did he have?
He had light skin, light dark skin.
You could tell that through the glass at night.
Yes.
Did he have any jewelry on?
I don't remember any seeing any jewelry.
What he's wearing?
I would have to look at my report to see if I wrote that down. This has been a year and a half of it, almost 2 years ago. I don't remember.
What color were his eyes?
I don't know what color they were.
Did he have a hat on or anything?
No, he didn't.
Okay, so after you made all those observations, then you turned your direction, I guess, by skipping up a little bit further in your vehicle in those 2 seconds. You said you looked through the windshield and saw the passenger?
Yes, that's correct.
And you observed her laying down in the seat?
Yes,
Do you remember in your report saying that her seat was all the way back as far as it could go?
yes,
How did you tell that from driving on the highway?
because I couldn't see her or the vehicle when I pulled up next to it. It was only after I pulled up further and looked back into the windshield that I could actually see the seat and her.
Well, you said you could, in your report, you said you could clearly see into the car.
Correct.
And that you pulled up further, you could see the passenger seat going all the way back. As far as it could go. Remember saying that?
Can you repeat the question?
When you looked into the car, you said that you could see clearly into it, and then you pulled further up, almost passing the car. And you could see that the passenger seat, so when you get back there, you pulled up almost passing the car. What does that mean? That means the rear of your car was the front of his car?
That means that I don't know exactly where our bumpers were related, but it was far enough to where I could look over through my passenger window and back and see through the windshield. I don't know how far the bumpers were.
Well, what does it mean when you tell someone in your police report, I pulled further up, almost passing him? How far away was your car rear from the front of his car?
Don't know.
What does almost passing someone to you mean?
It means my passing someone would mean my whole car is past their car. Almost passing would mean it would be where the entire car was not in front of his car. It would be maybe my back bumper was at his front bumper or something like that. Passing a car would be where my whole car was passing.
So you were nearly a car length, your car length in front of his car, if you were nearly passing him.
No,
Correct?
no. One car length would mean my back of my bumper would be one whole car could fit between the front of his bumper and my rear bumper. I was not that far.
All right. But From that vantage point, while you were driving down IH-35, do you remember how fast you were driving?
About 65 to 70. He slowed down there or I got back up to him, or when I got up to him.
So that's a good enough speed to be turning around and looking behind you, see what's standing car behind you? That's safe?
Is it safe to look out your passenger window while you're driving 70 miles an hour? Is that what you're asking?
Yes.
Yes, it can be. You
Okay.
have to do it sometimes to merge, so.
So you looked out your passenger window as you were almost past him and saw that there was a seat down all the way back as far as we go, according to what you said. And then you could tell it was a female. How'd you tell it was a female?
How could I tell it was a female?
You just assumed since the collar was female? Or did you really see she was female?
No, I was able to see she was a female.
Why? What told you she was female?
The same way that I know you're a female.
What did you observe?
Feminine features?
What?
Feminine features?
Okay, well, what features did you see from the front of your
I could
vehicle
see-
looking backwards?
I could see her mouth was open completely, as if she was screaming. Like I testified earlier, there was a look of sheer terror on her face, so don't forget it. She had her hand up like this, and she was almost like in a fetal position, and she was crunched her body all the way up against the side of the car, like she was trying to get away from the driver, and get as far away from him as she could.
Okay, so you say you saw her screaming.
Yes, I believe she was screaming, her mouth was open like she was, I couldn't hear anything.
She had been yelling at the person versus screaming.
She could have been yelling.
And we saw the video, when we were looking at your, I think, body cam, perhaps the last one. Was it cloudy out that day? Because your window was either really dirty or it was cloudy. Do you remember?
I don't remember if it was cloudy.
You also told us that, once the stop took place and the car took off, well, actually, I'm gonna go back to that. What we saw in those two videos, you're telling the jury that you were able to see his head hanging out the window, talking to you on that video we saw?
On the felony stop, yes.
You were crouched behind your door with a gun and you saw a head that wasn't otherwise visible on that video?
So if you take a look at the front of my vest here, my body camera is not mounted at eye level, so my eyes are up here.
Right.
So my body camera is not going to capture what my eyes can see. So my body camera may be blocked by something, in this case, the door and the middle side of the car, but my head is not. I'm looking over top of that to see the people in the vehicle.
So the in-car camera is gonna give us our best view of what you saw or didn't see at the stop.
Probably.
And then we learned that the car obviously takes off. And you know that the car was accelerating to speeds over 100 miles an hour, but you testified it was 140. How did you change that to be 140 miles an hour today?
140 is over 100.
And if you couldn't see the vehicle, how could you clock it?
I didn't clock it.
Use guess?
No.
Well, how'd you figure it's 140? If you're gonna give me a speeding ticket, you either have radar or you pace me and tell me how fast I'm going, right?
Correct. We can pace vehicles. We are trained in visual speed estimation. All of our patrol cars have certified speedometers. If I'm doing 130 and a vehicle is actively disappearing from my view, they are clearly doing more than 130 miles per hour. That is my visual speed estimation, how long it took him to disappear from view based on the speed I was doing. That's why I came up with the number between 130 and 150.
Okay, so on the evidence we just listened to, you report that you're going 100 miles an hour, and then I think a little bit later on at 115, I can barely see him. there is no more talk of you going any faster or being able to see this vehicle on that. Or did we not hear everything on that?
No, there is no talk. I did not update the latest speed before I exit. The speed that you heard me last say was 115. I did not update them and say, I'm doing 130 now.
Well, isn't it true that before you exited, you'd already lost him? Because you were at Posey Lane, essentially, right where the car pulled over. Right past Honda on the access road at the alcohol area, right?
Can you repeat the question?
All right. You turned your lights on, the car had not yet accelerated, it did what it was supposed to, it pulled over. The access road over there, and you have to travel a little bit to get off onto the access road, correct? When you leave IH-35?
Correct.
And that's just past Center Point Road, which is the infamous outlet mall area of San Marcos, right?
Yes.
And on that right side of the road southbound, there's a Honda dealership. You can see it's blue, like lights up blue on the video. And you didn't stop there, did you?
He stopped shortly in that area, right when he exited Posey, he stopped initially right after Posey.
Right. You stopped a U-Haul place right next to it. Okay.
Correct.
And so this driver then has the, when you have your guns drawn, you have your lights on, there's 4 or 5 other cars blocking the entire access road with their lights on and their guns drawn, right?
That's right.
You tell the driver,
hold on.
we hear him
I'm
say,
Can I have you move closer to the microphone? Thank you.
we hear you say, driver, you know, drop your keys, get your hands out, I mean, for officer safety, obviously, right?
Correct. I told him to turn the car off and throw the keys out of the window.
We never saw the keys come out, so we don't even know if he turned his car off in the first place, too.
He didn't. I didn't hear the engine shut off. I could hear it.
Okay. Well, and then moments later, you say he says something, but you don't really make it out exactly, right? You think he says why, but you don't know?
It was hard to hear, but I believe he said why.
Is that because he was far away from you, it was hard to hear?
Could it have been that his voice was not projecting or he wasn't talking loud? By talking in a low voice, you're not going to hear me even if I'm up close to you.
But then the car went, you said you put it into drive, but you don't know if he had it in drive to begin with, he just had the brakes on, or do you know?
I don't remember.
Okay, and then the person driving obviously peels out, tire screeching, takes off. That's pretty much where the evading starts. That right there is evading, right?
Correct.
Okay, whoever was driving. So when you're driving down the highway in a very excited, high-speed chase or just an investigation, we hear you calling in all this information regularly about what mile marker you're at, what speed you're at, what you're observing. Is that correct?
Yes.
And do you do that for officer safety only, or is that a way to document your actions?
I suppose it could probably be both, but it's mainly to let the supervisor know because the supervisor isn't there with us. So they need to hear over the radio what is going on because they also have the ability to call a chase off if something happens. So they need to know how fast we're going, where we're at, and it's to let other officers know who are coming to respond to assist me. This is where I need to go to catch up to them. So
Well,
there's a multitude of reasons why I would say this on the radio, yes.
It's in the normal course of your business. That's what an officer does, right? That's why you wear your radios to call in everything going on, right?
Yes.
Okay. And in fact, when you first think you saw the vehicle, you radioed that in immediately. I think I got him, right?
I don't remember at what point I radioed to let them know that I was catching up to them.
Would you agree with me that you drove up to the side of the car to look in because you were trying to see who was driving? Is that why you drove up, or were you just trying to see what was going on?
I was trying to see if I had the correct vehicle. I was trying to see if this was the vehicle where the woman was calling 911 asking for help.
Well, you already saw that it matched the vehicle description of being a silver car, the Charger, right?
Correct.
So you then pulled up, I'm assuming, to see what was happening there so you could report it, right?
I just answered that question.
Well, answer my question, please.
You want me to repeat my answer again?
Yes.
Sure. I pulled up next to the vehicle to see if this was the correct vehicle of the woman who called 911. I wanted to look inside and see who was inside. If there was a single female that was driving, I would know this isn't our vehicle. So I was doing multiple things. I was running the tag, having this like a tag, while I pull up next to it to look in, so I can go, is this the car we're looking for or not?
Okay, but you told us that when you drove up next to it, you only saw a man, you didn't see anybody on the other side.
Initially, yes. That's right.
So that wasn't your vehicle, it was only a 1%, right, at that point?
Fortunately, I was able to pull past that vehicle and look into the windshield. so I
My
could
question
see.
was,
Hold on,
sir.
Drew. Hold on, Drew. Remember, she's taking down everything we say.
Yes,
Please
sir.
allow him to finish his answer, and please don't start your answer until she's finished her question.
Sure.
You may proceed.
Thank you, Your Honor. So when you were checking out the vehicle to see if it contained a person, a he, because that's all we knew, a he, and a female caller, you only saw a male, right?
Initially,
And then within the 2 seconds we see you on the video, you say that you pulled up, driving, you turn around, look through your windshield into their windshield, and you see a girl that you described, I guess, quite detailed. And you, at that point, you decide, this is the car, right?
it was a pretty safe assumption based on the actions of people's body language, the tag number coming back to a Karen conscious, and the woman on the original 911 call saying he won't let me out of the vehicle. I assumed she was not driving. So based on all that information I saw when I pulled up next to her, I assumed this was the correct vehicle. This was the person who called 911 asking for police help.
So are you testifying that you already had the tag number coming back to Karen Conscious when you pulled up to the car or not?
I don't remember when they gave the return saying that vehicle is registered to Karen Conscious. I don't remember if it was after I pulled up next to them and looked, or if it was before. I don't remember that.
Okay, needless to say, all of that was really important information. In fact, you put it in some of it in your report, didn't you?
Yes,
But none of it was radioed to anyone else, was it?
no, it was. I told dispatch and the other officers my observations.
You told them exactly what the driver looked like while you were driving down the highway?
I probably didn't go into detail on what the driver looked like, but I do remember letting them know that I saw a female who appeared to be in distress in the passenger seat. I do remember saying that on the radio.
Well, would not we have heard that on the body cam that was played?
It depends, like I had testified earlier, when I activate the body camera, it's the same as the fleet camera. The last 30 seconds of video is recorded, but not audio. It only records audio after I activate my body camera, then it starts recording audio. So if I don't remember at what point I activated my body camera, it was most likely after I was like, this is the correct visual, I need to activate my body camera so we can capture anything else that happens.
Well, I told you that the, your body cam is 14 minutes long, and so is your in-car video, it's also 14 minutes long. Would your body cam have not been on the entire time you were driving, in that 14 minutes?
Yes, correct. That if the time's matched, then I activated them both at the same time.
And so if you had done what you told us, it would be on, it would be recorded on your body camera or your in-car.
They act the same way. I mean, they don't pick up audio until they're manually turned on, or I go over a certain speed limit, or I activate my cameras, or my lights and sirens, or my lights. So if I didn't do one of those things, they're not going to activate, or they're not going to start recording basic audio.
Okay. But that is the only visual contact that you have are alleged to have had with the driver of the vehicle in your pursuit, right? You never saw the person again
I saw them when I
in the car.
pulled up initially and looked over when we were driving. I saw him when he stuck his head out the window and looked back at me, saying something that I believe was why. And after that, I did not see him again in the vehicle.
And could you see any details of him with his head out the window at this actual temporary detention that was going on?
Any details? I would say he was further away than when I initially pulled up next to him and looked over at him and looked at him in his eyes. So it would be less details that I would see that far away than when I pulled up next to him.
You saw no details when he was temporarily detained, correct?
I didn't say that. I saw details. I could see it was a light-skinned black male or Hispanic male peeking his head out of the window. I did not see anything other than that. I could see some of the facial features, but again, this was from here to that wall away probably. So it was a little harder to see than when I was looking right at him 12 feet away.
And is it unusual to see a light-skinned, black-skinned male in Central Texas?
Is it unusual? No. We live in college now.
Ask witness.
Okay,
Officer Sarver, the location where you activated your lights and that initial stop happened, what county was that located in?
It was in Hays County.
And when the driver of that Dodge Charger accelerated away from that detention, what county was that located in?
In Hays County.
And you mentioned previously that you obtained search warrants for phone numbers. Can you tell us what was the phone number that you used for Karen?
Can I refer to my report?
Please do.
The phone number is 210-983-2680. 210-983-2680.
And would that have been the same phone number that contacted 911?
Yes.
And what phone number did you seek records for related to the defendant?
Can I refer to my report?
Please.
Two 210-268-9013.
And what was the source of where you got that phone number in relation to the defendant?
This was from, I believe New Braunfels PD had found that because there were certain things that happened after this pursuit where New Braunfels PD got involved, and they were able to get that phone number for me, from what I remember.
Now, Officer Sarver, at the point that you activated your emergency lights on I-35, did you believe that you had probable cause to detain the driver of that gray Charger?
Yes, absolutely.
Why?
Because he was alleged to be holding a potential victim hostage and wouldn't let her out with a handgun.
And in addition to just wanting to do your job, do you have an obligation as a peace officer in the state of Texas when you are in possession of information that someone's life may be in jeopardy?
Yes,
What do you have to do?
I need to act to attempt to make sure that person is safe.
House witness.
Vince,
I have no follow-up questions.
has witness be released?
Subject to recall, Judge.
Sir, you're free to go about your business for now, but if someone gives you a call about this case, you're still under subpoena and you'll need to come back.
Yes, sir.
All right, thank you very much.
Thank you, Judge.
All right, what we're gonna do, ladies and gentlemen of the jury, is take our afternoon break. You will step back out to the jury room. During that time, remember my instructions, don't talk about this case, don't text about it. send any messages or do anything on social media. You won't do any research on this case either. You will get all the information you need either from the testimony or from the law that I will provide to you. Y'all have a good break.
All rise for the jury.
Porter's telling me that the discs that we do degrade so quickly.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I
Like Grace
just,
constantly has to ask me for new discs.
so this has one.
Okay, is there anything that we
four
need
and
to take
five,
up
4 and 5.
during the break?
Think so. You're not doing your cell phone person.
No, it's good to use Barnes's policy. I'm not calling Palacios, but you guys are still subject to recall.
Yeah, I think they're all night officers, so I can probably reach out to them. I'm sure they'll do that.
Okay, let's, and y'all take a break too. We'll come back and put on these officers. Thank you.
Who is it?
Austin Rose. Okay, yeah, there you go.
How you doing?
Good, sir. How are you?
Wait just a moment. When the jury walks in, I'll swear you when they're here. You made that long drive from the other county, huh?
Yes, sir. Not too bad.
Yeah. It's closer than most of the towns in our county.
Thankfully. All rise for the jury.
May be seated. State, call your next witness.
State calls Austin Rose.
Raise your right hand. You swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. Please have a seat. Adjust yourself close to that microphone. The base will move closer if needed, and it can move up and down. Thank you. If you would, please tell us your name and spell it for the court reporter.
Austin Rose, AUSTENROSE.
State.
What do you do for a living, sir?
I'm a police officer for the city of New Braunfels,
How long have you worked for the city of New Braunfels?
a little over 3 years.
And what's your current assignment with New Braunfels Police Department?
I'm a canine officer on patrol.
I'm sorry. Can you repeat that?
I'm a canine officer on patrol.
Thank you.
And how about back in February of 2023? Were you a canine officer or just patrol?
Just patrol.
And what is the difference between what you do now as a canine officer and what you did when you were just regular patrol?
So back then it was just me, but now I have a dog with me. So basically I can do anything that a regular patrol officer does, but now I have a furry friend with me this time.
And what is your furry friend's name?
His name's Alex.
Let's go back to February 3rd of 2023, back before you had your furry friend. Were you working the night shift on that particular day?
Yes, ma'am.
And what is the night shift for the New Braunfels Police Department?
It's 9 p.m. to 7 a.m.
And when you start a shift, do you have any type of briefing or any way to get information from other officers about what's been going on in the area before you started your shift?
Yes, ma'am.
Was there any information that was passed along to you about things that had been going on in San Marcos leading up to your shift?
No, ma'am, not during the briefing.
At some point, were you advised that San Marcos had a vehicle evade from that?
Yes, ma'am.
What information was shared with you, either from San Marcos Police Department or your own dispatch?
So the information was provided from our dispatch that San Marcos had gotten into a vehicle pursuit with a suspect involved in a kidnapping case. We received information that a female was in the car and we called 911, stating that her boyfriend was threatening to kill her and possibly had a gun.
And why was it significant, not just that that original call had taken place, but that that vehicle had also evaded from law enforcement here in San Marcos?
To us, that was pretty significant just because it's a pretty serious event when someone calls 911, stating that their boyfriend is trying to kill them and has a gun with them. It's also pretty serious considering that they had also evaded from another agency as well.
So when you received this information, did you take any action or any steps to try and assist?
Yes, ma'am.
What did you do?
So since San Marcos is one city over from New Braunfels, I posted up on I-35 southbound and waited for the vehicle to pass, or made an attempt to locate the vehicle.
And do you know, were you the only New Braunfels Police Department officer who did that?
No, ma'am.
Are you aware of an officer by the name of Officer Palacios?
Yes, ma'am.
And so Ruby doesn't send me a nasty email later. Do you think you could spell Palacios for us?
Palacios.
And when you're on shift, how do you and other officers communicate back and forth?
Via radio system.
And how was it that you became aware that Officer Palacios was also positioned along 35 looking for the same vehicle?
So once dispatch put out the notes about the pursuit, pretty much our entire shift moved to the highway. So we had an in-car CAD system with a big map of the city, so I saw that pretty much everyone else was on the highway looking for the vehicle as well.
And at some point, did Officer Palacios notify other officers that he had observed something significant?
Yes, ma'am.
What did he relay to you?
He relayed that he had observed the same vehicle that dispatch put out passing southbound on 35.
And where was he located in relation to where you were located?
If I remember correctly, he was located closer to either 46 South or FM 306, but still southbound on 35.
Approach witness?
May,
Officer Rose, it may be beneficial if we use State's Exhibit number 8. Can you tell me, does this appear to be a map of the New Braunfels area?
Yes, ma'am.
Does it appear to accurately reflect some of the areas that were significant in this particular investigation?
Yes, ma'am.
This time I'm going to offer State's Exhibit number 8, tender to opposing counsel for any objection.
No objection, Your Honor.
State Exhibit 8 is admitted.
Here we go. So Officer Rose, what portion of New Braunfels proper do we see kind of depicted in State's Exhibit number 8?
So this would be the southern half of city of New Braunfels.
And do you recall approximately where along 35 you were stationed?
Yes, ma'am, at Walnut 35.
And would that be approximately here?
Yes, ma'am.
And on the big map, here?
Yes, ma'am.
And Officer Palacios, was he southbound or northbound from your location?
He was farther north.
So he would have been this direction, is that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
And do you know, was Officer Palacios actually able to catch up to that vehicle that he had seen?
No, ma'am, he was not.
Based on where he was in the last known direction of travel, what did you do?
I just waited for the vehicle to pass my location.
And approximately what time was this?
This was around 10 p.m.
And what did you observe as you sat on the side of I-35?
So there was quite a bit of traffic at the time, but due to the vehicle's high rate of speed, and from previous experience, if you're trying to catch up to a car that's already traveling at a highway speed, it's a lot easier to actually merge onto the highway and kind of slow roll. That way you're not trying to catch up to it from a dead start. So at that time, I entered the southbound lanes of travel and attempted to locate the vehicle.
So you're coming from Walnut and you are headed southbound?
Yes, ma'am.
And at some point, as you were traveling, did you locate that suspect vehicle?
Yes, ma'am, I did.
What stood out to you about the vehicle?
It was going pretty fast and it actually cut me off. I was in lane 3, which is the third lane from the inside median. The vehicle was in lane 2. And as soon as it passed me, assuming that he knew that he just passed the police officer, so he actually slammed on his brakes and cut me off to get to the next exit.
And once you realized that that vehicle matched the description of the suspect vehicle, what did you do?
I caught up to it just to verify that the license plate provided by dispatch was the same license plate on the vehicle. And at that time, I realized that it was, so I activated my emergency lights to the traffic stop on the vehicle.
And kind of a silly question, I know, but the vehicle that you were driving, is it a marked police unit? What does it mean to be a marked unit?
Just says City of New Braunfels Police Department, and it has our red and blue light bar on the top.
And does it also come with a siren?
Yes, ma'am, it does.
And if you, in the course of your employment, decide that you need to pull someone over, what do you do to signal to someone that you need them to pull over or stop?
I'll activate my emergency red and blue lights.
And in this particular case, when you activated your emergency red and blue lights, what did your suspect vehicle do?
He decided to flee.
where did he travel?
So we took the Ruka Road exit, which at the bottom of the screen, right where the red laser at is Loop 337, so he took that exit. And then there's a pretty significant turn lane from the frontage road onto the loop. And at that time is where I decided to activate my lights, and then we decided to flee northbound on the loop.
And you described it as fleeing. What about his actions made you believe specifically that it was fleeing instead of just continuing driving the direction he was going?
Yes, sir. So pretty quickly, just due to the vehicle that he was driving, he reached speeds of over 100 miles per hour. In my intent to catch up to him, he actually went around multiple vehicles on the outside shoulder of the loop, and nearly caused a couple of collisions.
And if you know, what's the speed limit in the area of Loop 337 that we've been discussing right here?
I believe it's 55 miles an hour.
And in addition to kind of weaving through traffic and accelerating the way you described, did he do anything else that made it difficult for you to maintain a visual of him?
Yes, and he turned off all of his lights on his vehicle, so he blacked out.
And after he blacked his vehicle out, what happened?
So just due to his speed and the type of vehicles that we drive, I pretty quickly lost visual of him. So I notified other officers of the last area that I had observed the vehicle and essentially just told them to start looking further on.
Did you and other officers on your shift communicate back with the San Marcos and even the original agency, the Cal Police Department?
Yes, ma'am.
Did you attempt to get any additional information about where the suspects may be headed or may be located?
Yes, ma'am.
What specific information did you or other officers request?
So information was later received through one of our night shift supervisors about where the suspect had eventually traveled to. But that was requested by our supervisors at the time.
And would it be safe to say that your involvement in this particular case was pretty much the pursuit that you engaged in New Braunfels?
Yes, ma'am.
Past witness.
Since
Hi, Officer Rose. Are you prior military?
No.
No, okay, you just look very young. All right, so you've been on the force for 3 years, so this time it was about 2 years you've been working.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And all of your observations and the chase, the vehicle was fleeing you, that all occurred in Comal County, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Asterisk.
Nothing further. May this witness be excused.
I'm asking you that. May this witness be released?
Yes, please.
We have no objection.
All right, sir, you're free to go about your business. Thank you.
Thank you.
State, call your next witness.
State calls Jace Hobbs.
Raise your right hand. You swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
Yes, Your Honor.
You may have a seat. And if you would, you can adjust that base. It'll move closer and up and down. Officer, please tell us your name and spell it for the court reporter.
My name is Jace Hobbs, Jacehobbbs.
Safe.
How are you employed, sir?
I'm a lieutenant with the New Braunfels Police Department
How long have you been with MVPD?
since 2008.
And back in February of 2023, were you a lieutenant or something else?
I was a patrol sergeant
What are the general duties and responsibilities of a patrol sergeant?
to supervise a squad of officers, approximately 10 to 12 officers at that time, who answer calls for service throughout the shift.
And how are shifts defined? Are they split up by times?
Yes,
What was the shift that you were supervising at that?
I was supervising the evening shift, so 4 p.m. to 2 a.m.
And you said that was approximately how many officers?
10 to 12 on a given day.
Lieutenant Hobbs, at some point on still making up a month now, on February 3rd of 2023, did you become aware of a situation that had started in Kyle and progressed through San Marcos?
I did.
How is it that you get information like that?
Well, typically in this case, we had officers that were pursuing a vehicle earlier in the day, and then also we will receive information from other cities through our dispatch center.
And did you direct your officers in New Braunfels to take any actions as a result of the information you had been provided?
Yes,
What did you direct them to do?
we directed them to go to 515 Clearfield Drive, that's in New Braunfels, to see if we could locate the individuals in this case.
And why was that particular address of interest to you in this case?
We were informed by, I believe it was San Marcos PD, that the phone was pinging there at that location.
And are you familiar with the term phone pinging?
Yes,
Within law enforcement generally, what does a phone pinging mean?
just means that a phone is showing to be at that location.
And law enforcement in emergency situations, are y'all authorized to ping phones or check phones locations?
Yes,
Member to witness?
May.
I'm going to show you State's Exhibit number 9. State's Exhibit number 9 accurately reflect the New Braunfels area,
yes,
and the red dot, is that a location that you were familiar with?
correct.
And State's Exhibit number 10 and 11, do those appear to be accurate satellite images of that same location?
Yes,
And State's Exhibit number 12, does that appear to be a street view of, again, that same location of interest?
yes.
This time I am going to offer State's Exhibits number 9 through 12. Tendering your closing.
There's no objection, Your Honor.
States Exhibit 9, 10, 11, and 12 are admitted.
And Lieutenant Hobbs, looking up here at State's Exhibit number 9, that red dot is located where?
That is 515 Clearfield.
And prior to receiving this information about the specific address from the San Marcos Police Department, had any of your officers observed suspicious behavior associated with this call?
Yes, and in reference to a pursuit we were involved in approximately an hour before that.
And so you were aware that officers with the New Braunfels Police Department had tried to pursue that same vehicle approximately an hour before you were given this location.
Correct.
And looking at State's Exhibit number 10, and then a zoomed in view, State's Exhibit number 11, what kind of location is this address?
It's a duplex, residential duplex.
And what did you and officers do when you were just given the basic information that was provided in this address?
We sent officers to the house to start knocking on the door, knocking on the neighbor's door to see if we can locate the vehicle and or anybody with the house.
Were you able to determine whose residence it was?
We did.
Whose residence was it?
This was, we had in-house records from the Braunfels Police Department where Stacy Smith and I believe a Karen Conscious had residents there, and we've had calls for service there.
And to be fair, there's a lot of reasons why someone might have a call for service.
Correct.
Were you also able to access through that same database phone information or contact information for those individuals?
I was.
Did you do anything to try to reach out to either Karen or Stacy in an attempt to contact them that day?
I did. I tried to call both of them.
And were you successful?
At first, no.
How long were New Braunfels police officers at that residence for?
It was a while, a couple hours, it seemed like.
Why was it officers stayed so long at that residence if all you had was just this phone ping?
Because of the serious nature of the offense we had information that somebody was being held against their will, and we were very concerned about the individual that called 911.
And looking at State's Exhibit number 12, does that residence have a closed garage?
It does.
Did officers check the entire residence to see if they could locate anybody maybe inside or around that residence?
Yes, we did. went around the house and I believe officers located a broken window on the back side of the house.
Now, based on your training and experience in law enforcement, is it concerning when you have a residence with a broken window?
It is, yes.
Why?
It just is, it's just odd. It's not typical. It's usually indicative of something that, disturbance of some sort that has happened or some sort of crime that has occurred.
And you mentioned that initially you were not able to make contact with Mr. Stacy Smith. Did that change at some point?
It did.
Approximately when were you able to get in touch with Mr. Smith?
Have a refer to my notes real quick.
Sure.
I received a phone call from him back at 11:17 p.m.
And were you able to speak with him over the phone?
I was.
And if you know, was that the same phone number that you had previously tried to call him on?
It was.
And what was that phone number?
210-268-9013.
And it may sound like kind of a silly question, but how did you know for sure that the person you were talking to on that phone was in fact Mr. Stacy Smith?
While speaking with him on the phone, he asked me if I wanted to FaceTime him, and I said, absolutely sure. And I was able to see him visually through the phone, through FaceTime.
And at the time you spoke to him, did it appear that Mr. Smith was actually in New Braunfels?
I couldn't tell. It didn't appear that he was at the house. It was definitely an apartment complex that he was at. I could tell that from the hallway. It was like a lighted hallway and the style of doors that go in.
So definitely not the residence we see here in State's Exhibit number 1 or number 12.
Correct.
And just so that we're all clear, when we talk about Mr. Stacy Smith, do you see that same individual here in the courtroom?
I do.
Can you point in his direction and tell me something about what he's wearing or where he's sitting?
The defendant with the suit with the coat.
The record reflect that the witness has identified the defendant. Lieutenant Hobbs, did you generate a report documenting everything that you and other officers did in this case?
I did.
Does the New Braunfels Police Department have body cams and in-car cameras in their vehicles?
Yes.
Do you know, did you and other officers utilize your body cams and in-car cameras during this particular incident?
We did.
Have you made attempts to locate those recordings?
Yes.
Have you been successful?
No.
Do you have any idea why the New Braunfels Police Department would not have attached those videos with your reports?
I have no idea in this case why that we are unable to find them.
As far as you know, did you or anybody at the New Braunfels Police Department intentionally destroy evidence in this case?
No.
Are you aware of the general procedures for in-car and body-worn cameras?
Yes.
What happens to recordings that are not attached to a case or marked to be preserved for some reason?
Eventually, there's preservation or purging that occurs. So some videos will purge after 90 days, some will purge after a year, and some will purge after 2 or 5, depending upon the case. And once that purge happens, we no longer have access to those videos.
And based on your training and experience, does that appear to be what has happened in this particular case?
That's what I believe happened.
And Lieutenant Hobbs, in addition to speaking to Mr. Smith, you mentioned that you also attempted to contact the female that was the subject of the original call. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Were you able to successfully contact her?
Yes, it was much later in the morning, about around 2 a.m. in the morning.
And was she as cooperative with you as Mr. Smith was with FaceTiming? And
She FaceTimed me, but was very vague about giving me.
was that surprising to you?
No.
Based on your training and experience, why was that not surprising?
This is a very common practice when we have cases of severity and that involve individuals with each other. Sometimes after the incident happens, there's a recuperation period. People start to try to have a relationship.
And specifically, are you referencing stranger on stranger offenses or something else?
Family disturbances or relationships.
Did you provide all the information that you had available to the San Marcos Police Department in this case?
Yes, I believe our entire case report was forwarded to their division of their investigative branch.
I'll pass the witness.
Defense.
Officer, when you were speaking with Mr. Smith that evening, he was in San Antonio, right?
That's where he said he was. I wasn't able to tell what city he was in.
Well, didn't you also speak with an individual that he was with and had been with that day?
Correct. Well, that's who they said they had been with.
Right, and you obtained that individual's name during that FaceTime call, actually, didn't you?
Correct.
And I know that you were the lead officer on all of the multiple officers' reports, correct? You're kind of lead out of all the guys from the Broncos PD were involved.
I was the supervisor that was kind of supervising the incident.
Okay. And in fact, there were, you have your report with you? You have the report or just your report?
I have the report.
Okay, so you have 1, 2. You have 15 officers that were responding out of New Braunfels, correct?
Correct.
And of those, everyone had body cams and in-car videos except for yourself, because you were back at the station, right? Or excuse me, you had one too. There are only 2 people who didn't have their body camera in-car video because they were not in a vehicle. Is that correct?
I don't know which officers you're referring to.
Okay, well, if you look through the report, everybody had body cams and in-car videos except for 2 officers, correct?
The only 2 that didn't were Sergeant Penniman and the detective that were assigned to the case.
And those would have been the ones back at the station that would not have been actually down this way, right?
Correct.
So, so how many officers then? There's 15, so you had 13 sets of body cams and in-car videos that are gone, right?
I guess so. Once again, I'm not in charge of our records division or retention, so I don't know the full answer.
Right. And we're not trying to say that you had anything to do with that, just asking you to verify that you lost probably 26 videos of what was going on that night down in New Braunfels, correct?
They're not there, correct?
Okay. And when you were on scene at the, oops, can you go back up? At the residence in States Exhibit 12, the other exhibits are just areas of that same house, correct?
That's correct.
Okay. You were on scene, and who else was on scene with you?
I was actually around the corner from the house.
How many officers were on scene?
I'd have to go back and review every officer's statement, but we had several there.
We had a couple officers that were involved just in the interstate 337 trying to track the vehicle, but everyone else all positioned themselves over at that residence, right?
For the most part, yes. Are you wanting a list of every officer that was actually at the house?
No, it's fine. So basically, you all were stationed out there because you thought there was a hostage situation going on, right?
Correct. We were concerned about that, yes.
And how many hours did you sit there?
It was a couple of hours that we were out there, it seemed like.
Okay, and were you working alone around the corner, or were you working in conjunction with some other officers as far as investigations go?
I had I had one more sergeant with me.
And were you all sharing all of your information throughout the evening on what was going on?
Correct, yes.
So if an officer walked around the house and said, oh, there's a broken window in the kitchen, everyone would have heard that on the radios, right?
Yes.
And was everyone privy to the fact that you actually made contact with Mr. Smith down in San Antonio or wherever he was?
I believe so, yes.
And was everyone privy to the fact that he had somebody get on the FaceTime and let you know that he'd been with them?
I don't believe everybody knew that part of it. I think that when I was speaking with him on the phone, I believe one of the other officers had radioed to the rest of the group saying that I was on the phone with him.
So you're the only one who knew about this other witness?
I don't know what other people knew or not, but I guess so, yes, I knew about the other witness. I don't know what other people knew or didn't know.
And typically when you write an offense report, you write down all the pertinent information about anybody and everybody you talk to, right?
Correct.
And for instance, if there's an eyewitness, maybe at the house, for instance, y'all would have noted that the neighbor was home, right?
Correct.
And you would have put the neighbor's name, address, phone number, contact information, as much as you could about that person, right?
If applicable, yes.
Yeah, if another neighbor walked by with their dog, wanted to get their 2 cents worth, you probably would have noted what they had to say as well.
Potentially.
Okay. Why did you not include any information other than the name of the person who said that Stacy Smith had been with that evening? Why did you not put her down as a subject, a witness, interested person in your report?
She's in the report.
Just her name in the context, right?
Right, that was all that I received from her was the name Billy.
Did you ask for any more information from this person who said that he knew her?
No, it was just real brief. I was speaking with Mr. Smith there.
Okay, so who took charge of the Nebraska's investigation at that point? Were you all done? Did you just quit? Or was it someone else's duty to continue to investigate?
One of the detectives, I believe, for our agency investigated this.
Okay. But nobody ever followed the lead on the Billy woman who said that Stacy Smith was with her, did they?
I don't know.
Well, it's not in the report anywhere, is it?
Are you talking about from New Braunfels?
Yes.
I don't know if somebody did or not.
Well, if they did, it would be in the reports, would it not?
I don't know what somebody else would write in the report or not write in the report.
Well, you just told us you had the whole stack of everybody's supplements, right? You had this big stack of offense report, correct?
Correct.
Okay. And so just for the jury's benefit, when one person tends to be a lead, perhaps on an investigation, they might write the actual report, right?
Correct.
And then everyone else who is involved, they write quote supplements, correct?
Correct.
And so are you looking at just the miscellaneous report and everyone's supplements in front of you?
I have my supplement right here in front of me, and I believe the main narrative and all the reports that were entered into the case.
Okay. And do you need a moment to refresh your memory to look through that to see if anybody from your agency followed up on the woman who said that Stacy Smith had been with her? Anything?
I can look through the reports if that's what you want me to do. I don't.
Yeah, you want to take a second, just quietly, pursue them.
Looking at the detective's report that was signed to it, it doesn't look like he made contact with her, but I believe it was forwarded, the case was forwarded on to San Marcos.
Okay, so nobody from your agency followed up on that lead. Do you have any idea when this report was forwarded to the San Marcos Police Department?
I don't know.
There's nothing that indicates it was sent to San Marcos PD investigators for follow-up?
I don't know. That would be the question for the detective assigned to the case.
And who's the detective on this case?
Detective Gardner.
Who?
Gardner?
Garner?
Yes, ma'am.
And nowhere in this report were any of your officers able to identify who was inside that vehicle that they observed evading in Comal County, correct? No one saw anybody. There's nothing in here about who they saw, just a car.
Correct.
Passwords.
Lieutenant Hobbs, did you note the name and the relationship of the individual that you spoke to in relation to Mr. Smith?
I did.
And what was her relationship to the defendant, or at least what she told you her relationship was?
She told me,
Objection, hearsay.
Judge, the door's been opened.
Not to hearsay.
Sustained, you can ask your question a different way.
Lieutenant Hobbs, was it your understanding that the individual you were speaking to along with Mr. Smith had a family relationship with Mr. Smith?
yes,
Are you able to run some type of high-tech computer search on someone based on a first and last name?
it can be very vague, especially with common names.
And so in this particular case, what information, if any, did you include in your report?
The name that was provided to me by the female.
Did you include all the information that she provided you in regards to Mr. Smith and his whereabouts?
Yes,
And Lieutenant Hobbs, why is it if you have somebody saying he's not there, he's in San Antonio, and he's been with me for however long, would you continue your investigation in New Braunfels into Mr. Smith?
yeah, I mean, he clearly wasn't at the house at the time that we were there, so we no longer needed to be at the house anymore.
And so at that point, did you refer any additional investigation onto, and for your agency, Detective Gardner?
Yes, we all wrote our reports and forwarded that information to Detective Gardner so he could get with the investigators here in San Marcos.
And the timing of that phone call that you had with Mr. Smith and his sister, what time did that phone call take place?
11:17 p.m.
And based on your review of the records, do you know what time the original pursuit would have taken place in New Braunfels?
I know it was before 10, so I couldn't give you the exact time. I know we didn't get out to the house until 10 o'clock, so it was far beyond that, before that, another hour, 45 minutes, an hour before that, it seemed like.
And approximately how long does it take to get from New Braunfels to San Antonio?
25 minutes.
So is the fact that somebody's in San Antonio when you talk to them at 11:17 indicate to you that there's no possible way that they could have been present in New Braunfels before or at 10 p.m.?
Completely plausible, yeah.
And Lieutenant Hobbs, you've actually been a detective before, correct?
I have
How long did you spend in the criminal investigation division?
10 years,
Have you interviewed few or many suspects?
many,
Few or many witnesses?
many.
Would it at all be surprising to you if someone told you an untrue thing to protect a family member?
Wouldn't be the first time.
And if you're asked to assess the credibility between people who are telling you different things, what are some of the factors that you're going to look for? Are you going to look at the relationship between the parties?
Absolutely.
So if you have a family member, that's a relationship that you want to take into consideration.
Absolutely.
What if it's a law enforcement officer who's never interacted with this person before?
Yeah, I'd certainly take that into consideration. That
They have a lot of motive there.
no.
How
Yes?
I guess likewise, officer, if a girlfriend is mad at, say, a boyfriend, ex-boyfriend, would you be surprised if they lie about something that's been done to them?
I would not.
People make false 911 calls, right?
It happens.
Right. Okay, so this house that's in exhibit 12 here, that's lit up right now, which unit was the one that you guys were watching? The one with the right garage door or the left garage door, so to speak?
The right.
So the left garage door is that 513?
513, I believe. I'd have to look at the map again, but I believe it's 513.
Okay, and 515 was the subject house that you all were monitoring.
Correct.
Okay, and when you all got there, there was a camper parked behind that red truck, was there not?
I believe so.
And you all actually spoke with the person who was in the camper who made some observations from what they saw that evening, correct?
Yes, I know some officers spoke with the individual in the camper.
And y'all got no positive ID on who was in that car, in that house, or anything like that, did you, out of that conversation?
I was told that they matched the descriptions.
A boy and a girl?
I was told that they matched the descriptions.
So does an Asian looking person match a black Hispanic male? Is that the same thing?
No, I don't know how to answer that question.
Well, I'm asking you, if someone says someone's Asian and they are actually black Hispanic, is that the same thing?
It could be. I mean, it's hard to say. I mean, that's a pretty broad question, but.
Okay. Do you want to refer to your report to see if you're still wanting to say that you felt that they matched?
I was told by the officers that they matched the descriptions of the people.
You have no idea. You have no idea.
I didn't speak to them, no. I was told that by the officers.
And so there's a lot of stuff you learned from that that neighbor who was there. You put her name in the report, didn't you?
I did not put the name in the report.
It would have been the officer who spoke with her who would have mentioned her name.
Correct.
Didn't you send a drone into the house?
We did.
You didn't see anybody in there, did you?
No, we did not at that time.
So y'all just hung out and waited, couldn't find anybody, and then you ended up closing your investigation, right?
I wouldn't characterize it as that. I think we were there trying to resolve the situation, and then when we finished that night, we wrote our reports and sent it for further investigation.
I'll pass witness.
Say,
Nothing further.
may this witness be released?
Yes, Your Honor.
Yes, Your Honor.
Thank you, sir. You're free to go about your business.
Thank you, Your Honor. Appreciate it.
All right. You good for the day? Or do you have a quick one?
No, Judge.
Okay. It's about 10 till 5, so we'll go ahead and take our evening break. Thank you very much for your attention today. Remember my instructions tonight. Don't talk to anyone about this case. Don't go on social media. Look up anything about the case. Don't see if there's anything out there that's been written about it. I don't know if there is, but in every case I say that. The reason is because we're always trying to protect the integrity of the proceedings. We want you to make your decision based only on the evidence that you heard from the witness stand and from the exhibits that have been admitted. That's why we have those rules. We will start back tomorrow at 9 a.m. Make sure that you're all here on time. We cannot get started unless all of you are here. We have some other matters to take care of in the morning, but I want to get those wrapped up as soon as possible so that we're started with you and we can keep this case moving. I know that this is your time and some of you have very important things to do, but this is important too, and we'll make sure that we do it the right way and fairly. Thank you all very much. Have a good evening.
All rise for the jury.
Okay, is there anything we need to take up on the record?
The only thing is I'm gonna ask to take up the admissibility of the sheriff expert's chart and report before she testifies tomorrow, so it doesn't hold up the jury.
Okay, so what do you propose?
Do we get here in the morning?
She's also here now.
Ruby? What do you prefer? I mean, well, Philip, do you know what's going on in the case that's coming back tomorrow morning? I think you're the one handling it. McGilvery?
Just give me a second. I can find it.
Yeah, the only reason I'm saying not to do it straight off in the morning is because there's something there. If we're going to be taking a plea or doing something at the bench that could get in the way, maybe we do that now. Or if we don't think there's going to be anything that is happening on that morning case, there's not a hearing, we can consider the morning.
Judge, are you talking about Andrew Taylor? The one with Todd Dudley?
No. There are two attorneys on it.
Leland McRae.
One of them is Leland McRae. One of them is Mr. Evans.
I wasn't aware of a setting on that case, tomorrow, Judge, and I believe it is my case.
Want me to grab the docket so they can see it? Grab it.
Let's grab it. It is a, and you can be seated if you want to relax. One of the attorneys was not able to be here. And so we said we would bring it back. There are 3 co-defendants on the case, and they all require an interpreter.
Yes. Oh, it's my husband.
That's right. Here's the numbers, guys.
I have not spoken to defense counsel. I believe he is also in jury trial down the hall. I don't know how that's gonna.
Mr. Evans and Mr. McRae.
Mr. McRae. I don't know how that would impact it. If we're all here and the witnesses here, I think it probably makes the most sense to get it done now.
Okay, let's do that.
I have 2 seconds, Judge.
Yes, of course you may. Light, let's bring in that witness. All right, we're going to start back with trial at 9 a.m.